Geoff Welch, I'm so glad you are here today. You are our own celebrity in Fairbanks. You started with a blog. You co-own a business, Dateline Digital Printing. You've been on a TED Talk. You have your own brand. You lead Leadership Fairbanks. I am just thrilled that you are here.
It's my pleasure. Thanks
Tell
for having me.
me what brings you here today. Tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so celebrity is very generous. Very generous, Tammy. But
Very true.
I'm just a guy that's trying to contribute something valuable to the community in which I live. And so the way that shows up for me is sharing ideas. I'm not a craftsman. I enjoy technology, but I'm not a programmer. I'm somebody who likes to think about things and likes to talk about ideas and hopefully move conversations forward by sharing things that I think are meaningful. And so that shows up in speaking at things like TEDx and in blogging and sharing videos and stuff like that. But at the heart, I'm a husband and a father and a small business owner that's trying to do something that is valuable to the community.
Well, I think that is part of it, is it's coming from the heart and it is a passion, and therefore you are successful. And we hear that a lot, but we're seeing it through you, and it's just so fun to watch what you're doing.
Thank you.
So when you start, you have several blogs now. You've had one, you've had two, and now you have several. Is that true?
Well, it's sort of. That's the arc, but it's coming back to one. So I mean, effectively, I'm a big fan of experimentation. I'm a big fan of let's try it and see if it works. And so over time, there have been a number of different outlets that is all kind of resolving back at geoffwelch.com now, where that's
spell that for our students.
Sure. GeoffWelch.com. It's a little complicated. We'll call it interesting. It's an interesting spell. But so that's kind of where things have been resolving over the past year or so. So I'm a big fan of trying different things and of kind of sticking my neck out there a little bit to do things that are unusual. But that seems to be the place where things are kind of gelling for me right now.
Okay. So tell our students about getting their start in blogging. So maybe they've thought about it, maybe they're dabbling in it. How did you get your start? Did you have professional help? Did you look online and see what others are doing? How does one get started?
So, I mean, there are a ton of outlets, especially today, where you can get started all by yourself pretty quickly. I use the WordPress platform, which is pretty easy to just get up and running very, very quickly. I work with a designer who's built me a site and that kind of stuff, because as the work that I'm trying to do has grown, it's become more important to have a little more professional look outside of Fairbanks. A lot of word of mouth inside of Fairbanks, where people aren't necessarily just looking at your website to get a determination about you. But once you start looking outside of your local community, that's kind of the first place that people will often go. And I wanted to have it be a clear representation of what I was about. So getting started, it definitely was very much me figuring out what I needed to do by Googling lots of things and building it myself. And I have some aptitude in that regard. So, I mean, it was something I enjoyed doing. But ultimately, that has been a progression over 5 or 6 years of coming from starting it completely by myself to I need help to kind of maybe smooth out some of the edges and make it look a little more professional. But the genesis of it really was wanting to find a way to communicate these, what I like to call irreverent ideas about business, and how that maps to my life. And so at some level, it's very autobiographical. So when people are starting, whether it's a blog or I'm doing a lot of video now on YouTube, regardless of what kind of content you're trying to create and share, I think it's an important aspect is to know your why, to understand why you're trying to do it in the first place, because that will inform a lot of the how. When you know the reasons behind why you're trying to share what you're trying to put out there, the avenue kind of becomes clearer, I think. Yeah.
So a couple side notes as you were speaking. So I've seen the YouTube videos. How do you do that walking camera thing? Are you just holding the camera in front of you?
I have a little tripod called a Pixie. I wish I'd brought it today, mostly because I could be shooting a lot of time lapse right now. But it's probably that tall, and it just attaches to the end, and it becomes a small tripod, so you can set it on a table, or it becomes a little handle.
Okay, and so you're walking with the handle.
It gives me a little bit of reach, and the camera that I chose to use has a pretty wide angle, so I can be relatively close to me and still pick me up pretty well.
What camera have you chosen?
It is a Sony A6300.
Okay. And then the other thing I was thinking about was you're saying I Google a lot of things. What podcasts do you listen to keep up on things, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, absolutely. So I listen to podcasts more for ideas than for like tactical advice. So I listen to a friend of mine in Florida has a named Nicholas Snap. He has a podcast called the Make It Snappy Productivity Show. Okay. And so they talk about productivity, obviously. I listen to David Allen's Getting Things Done podcast. That's a really good one. I read
GTD, it's called.
Yes, GTD. Yes. Yeah, for shorthand, absolutely. So podcasts. I have about an 8-minute commute to work, so I like to listen to books and podcasts, but it always takes me a long time to get through them because I'm not in the car that often. Right. So I also keep up with Seth Godin's blog. That's a huge source of inspiration for me.
Marketing guru.
Absolutely, just general genius. And pretty much anything Simon Sinek puts out there, I love that too. So those are the things that I would consider I go to those regularly and am engaged there.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
So a good blog is kept up. And so how do you find time, how do you make time to make sure that your blog is kept up?
So this to me falls into the category of self-management. This is, especially in leadership, you often don't have someone else giving you directives. So I don't have anyone that's telling me, hey, that blog is due. Hey, you need to post a video today. I've got to do that for myself. And I struggle with discipline sometimes. And so I have to create situations where I'm on the spot, where I have to deliver or ... And so basically what I programmed in, so posting daily videos, part of that was a discipline to ensure that I did it. Because if it's a day, I post a video. Okay. And so there's no day that I'm having to ask myself, is today a day when I post a video? So I've created a situation where people are expecting something, and if I don't deliver, I've let them down in some way. So that's something I do, but I have the luxury of having a job where I get to do this as part of my work. And so I can procrastinate with the best of them. I like to kind of wait for inspiration to strike in a lot of cases. Thankfully, it strikes often enough that I can produce, but sometimes it is a discipline to say, I need to sit down for the next hour and just work on this. And the challenge for me is that there's always something else that I could be doing, right? There's no shortage of things that are out there that would be good things to work on. And so sometimes I have to be real disciplined about saying, but this is the thing that I should be working on. So that could be, should be kind of thing is definitely a challenge, but I try to program my world in a way that I force my own hand, if that makes sense. Okay.
Well, I would also imagine, just like anything, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So if you're shooting a video every day, it's I have to set it up.
Yeah. There are certain efficiencies that show up because you use the same processes over and over again. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, the students are reading about blogging in this chapter. So what are your tips for successful blogging?
I think, again, it goes back to understanding your why. What are you trying to communicate? The more clear you are on why you're blogging, the easier it's going to be to blog. Because if you're just coming at it from I mean, your students probably aren't, but from that hobbyist kind of standpoint, like, this looks like a fun thing to do. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to get confused about, well, does this fit what I'm trying to say? When you're real clear on what your objective is, why you want to blog, then it's easier to just say, okay, well, here are the things that I want to talk about, and these all fit neatly together because this is my reason for being. So I think that's where it starts. That's my kind of first and best tip. My second tip is to just do it a lot. The more that you do that, the easier it will become. Like you said, the more you get into the more you start sort of hemming and hawing about, should I post this, should I not? I think the more you get into a habit of doing it regularly, the easier it is to just execute on that because it becomes a thing you do.
Well, so you've said it a few times, the why is the most important, and I think you opened it with what your why is, but again, I'm going to ask you, what is your why? Why do you blog?
Sure. I really feel like over the past few years, I've identified something valuable that I have to share, and it always feels weird to say that. It always feels kind of strange to say, I have something important to say. But I really do feel like I have something to contribute, and that I want to be a valuable member of this community and the broader community using the internet. The community gets kind of big when you put it online, right? But to contribute something that is maybe a little different than the standard sort of maybe the standard way that business maybe is talked about, and to contribute a different perspective, and to do something that I hope is meaningful to the people who read it.
All right. And that would help you stay on track then.
Yeah.
And that's why you're writing. All right. Let's ask you about driving traffic to your blog. What strategies do you use?
I blog for weird reasons, right? Part of what I am hoping to do with my blog is to create a online validation tool. And what I mean by that is that if somebody hears about me, if somebody wants to know more about what I do, there is a trail of breadcrumbs. There's a bunch of information they can go and find and determine whether or not having me come and speak, having me work with them in some way is going to be valuable to them, or whether they're going to say, well, he's got a blazer and a t-shirt on, this guy's not for us. That there's a certain amount of validating immediately whether or not we're going to be able to work together. And so I discovered early on when I started blogging, this wasn't necessarily the initial reason, but when I started, I began to notice that people were getting in touch with me because they had seen something I had done online, they had heard about me from someone else, and then they had gone to read about it. And I had inadvertently created a great resume online. And so I don't actively drive traffic. I mean, I do very little to... I'm not a big analytics guy. I'm basically trying to create a place where the people who are interested and curious about what I'm doing because they've heard about me from someone, I'm a big word of mouth guy, they have a ton of resources to do that. The biggest thing that I would say that I do to drive traffic, even if it's not incredibly intentional, like that's not the entire point, is posting video every day. That is a link back to the site that that is showing up over and over and over and over again. So. And
when you post video, I think you do multi-platform. I see it on Facebook.
Yeah, and that's a challenge right now.
Okay.
Like 80% of video on Facebook is viewed without sound, but I don't have time on a daily basis to caption everything. Okay. So there's a challenge there, and I would love to just post it on YouTube and be done with it, but there's way more engagement on Facebook. I get way more people interacting with it on Facebook.
Right.
And so I upload 2 places because that's what's effective. And that may be a good tip as well, is to all the smartest advice in the world pales in comparison to what actually works. And so if you find something that works in spite of the advice, do the thing that works.
So, and if I understand correctly, as I understand it, so if you do a native video to Facebook, much more effective than posting the link to YouTube.
Absolutely, yeah. And it starts playing automatically. So
go.
In the feed, it starts running. Yeah.
Okay. So somebody doesn't become successful without failure.
Yeah.
So maybe share one of your greatest failures and what you learned from it.
This is a tricky one, and not because I haven't failed, but my greatest failure has nothing to do with blogging. It has to do with not leading in my business a number of years ago. That was absolutely my greatest failure. But when it comes to kind of this topic, I think that I'll do what athletes do all the time and say, that's a great question, I'm going to answer a different one. I would argue that failure, especially small failure, is incredibly important. And so instead of having this one big failure I can point to and saying this is what changed everything, I would say that my willingness to fail has been very important to me. My willingness to say, this might not work, let's see, and to recalibrate as I go. So there have been a number of things. A blog we did for Dateline was effective in terms of what we were trying to communicate. People enjoyed the content, but it probably wasn't the best place for it to be in hindsight. And so being able to say, okay, well, that worked in a way, but it also didn't work in a way. What if we did it differently? What if we changed? That being willing to do that, I think, has been really important to me. And I look at it as experimentation. I think if you looked at like a scientist, scientists wouldn't say an experiment failed necessarily. They would say they learned something from it, and they're going to take that information and do something different, I think. And that's the way I look at it. I look at it like I have an opportunity, especially because the internet is cheap and you can try lots of things and not break the bank. I have an opportunity to do some experiments and to learn from those and fold that into the next thing. And so it really is a process of iteration, really.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, blogging seems simple. It's writing, expressing your ideas, and it's a great way to move either your personal brand or a business brand forward. However, 50% of bloggers seem to shut it down after fewer than 90 days.
Yeah.
So what do you attribute your success and your longevity?
I take that right back to the why. I think that a lot of those people who quit early probably didn't understand what they were really trying to do. And some of them it's a good place to get attention, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a good place to, I'm going to put out these things and everyone's going to love it. And then when everyone doesn't fall all over you, it's like, well, this is dumb. I don't want to do this. Like your why was really to get attention, not to do something different than that. And so if the attention doesn't show up, which in 90 days, sometimes it's way longer than that before really people start paying attention to you. You really have to have that fire in your belly and say, here's what I'm here for, and I'm going to do it whether people are paying attention or not, and hope that I make a dent. So for the way that I operate, blogging or videos, whatever kind of content I'm creating, it's augmenting what I'm doing in the real world. So I don't need to, my self-worth is not completely built on whether someone likes a post that I have. It's nice when that happens, so please go like all my posts. But that's not a necessity. I'm doing work that I think matters in a number of different venues. So I think that that's part of it. Is just not having a clear idea of why you're doing the thing you're doing, or maybe being confused about your real motives.
Right. Great advice. Let's talk about personal brand. So as I understand it, a personal brand is who you are and what you want to be known for. And you've taken steps to launch your personal brand. Share a little bit more about that with us.
Yeah, I feel like that, again, is something I've kind of backed into. I don't feel like I ever went out and said, here's the Geoff Welch brand and I need everyone to know about it. But it has started to show up over time because I've been compelled to kind of put myself out there in certain ways. And because I am a very visible part of my printing company, and because as a speaker and trainer, I guess, maybe a fair way to put it, I am very visible when I do those things. I'm the person on stage, right? It's my business and myself are very connected, and those two things are very intertwined. And so my life is very messy in some ways because I don't find any discrete edges between work and life. They just are together, and I have the luxury of doing that. So I certainly don't lament that. It's very wonderful to be able to do that. But I think that it's something that's kind of materialized over time and that I've taken more seriously in the past year or so, in terms of I want to work with people who want to work with me, if that makes sense. So I want to be able to communicate well what I'm about, and I've done enough gigs where I felt like they want the idea of me, but they don't really want me. Like they want someone to do the thing they already want them to do, and so I want to be able to communicate clearly what I'm about and what you get when we work together, so that there's not disappointment or missed expectations on either side of that. And so that personal brand is kind of a part of that, where effectively trying to communicate what I'm all about. And I think I do that with varying levels of success from time to time, but it's a process, it's something that is built over time.
Well, I appreciate that, because even students have a personal brand by having your identities everywhere online through the different social media platforms, and it is what they're all about. And others look at that, employers look at that and whatnot. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, and just to piggyback on that, like the idea of personal brand is kind of this formalized idea of reputation, right? And we all have one of those. And so you think about it as a personal brand when it's online or when it's something that is visible to a bunch of people. But I would just say, be aware of that in your with your classmates and with the people you work with. The way that people think about you and kind of the story they tell themselves about you is incredibly important to the opportunities you're going to see in the future.
Great. Well, the students are writing social media marketing plans for clients, and part of that is to choose 3 platforms that they feel are best for the client. So let's just, and generally, I know it's difficult by not pinpointing a business, what 3 platforms would you encourage students to explore?
So I use Facebook and Instagram, and I YouTube. Does that count? I think YouTube would be would count as a social platform. Those are the three I use because they're the most effective for what I do. Instagram is generally more of a kind of personal look behind the scenes at my life and kind of behind the scenes at an event or my work. Facebook gives you the opportunity to do a number of different things. I can write. I can share video, I can share pictures, so that's very flexible, and everybody's there, a ton of people there. And then YouTube clearly is a video platform, and for somebody who runs their mouth a lot, that's a good place to put, video is a good vehicle for that. My demographic isn't particularly young enough for Snapchat in terms of the people who are going to pay me, and so that is not a real area that I'm looking into, but depending on the kind of business you have, it could be huge, So I look at it like, if you want to become a writer, you don't say, I need to learn every single language so that I can write in every single language. You say, I'm going to be a really great writer in English. And you choose to learn that really, really well. And so for me, it's a matter of saying, what are the 1, 2, or 3 platforms that are that communicate what I'm trying to communicate the best, that allow me to reach out to the people I want to communicate with, and use those. So Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube are mine. A lot of value in the other ones, just not where I
it's
fits
endless
for me.
how many there are.
Oh yeah. And I would argue better to be great on one than to be marginal on many.
All right. Well, we've come to the end of the interview, so what
we're
other
done.
pieces of advice would you like to give to the students?
I guess that my best advice would just be aware of what your motivations are and why you're trying to do the thing you're doing, whether you're sharing a blog or video or any number of different ways that you communicate. Understand what your motivations are and why you're doing it, because that will inform so many other things. And it's when I get confused about how to do something, it's because I'm not clear on why I'm doing it. And it can be easy to want to do something because everyone else is doing it. Well, everyone's over on Snapchat. I looked at Snapchat and I had to make that determination. Maybe this isn't a good fit for me. But that was determined because I knew why I was doing what I was doing. So,
well, thank you. Thank you for
You're
being
very
here.
welcome. Thank you for
Students,
having me.
carry on.
Thanks, Tammy.